All right, so welcome to the Crown by Michelle podcast, where we just talk about everything. I'm not even gonna sit here and give you a tagline. It is what it is. So if you want to go back and watch past episodes, definitely go back and you can access it on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, iHeart, Spotify, Podcast Index, and YouTube, where you can also see the video of our podcast. So I know I said on early this week, that Monday was going to be the last time I was going to have a podcast episode. And the idea came to me because I have a show coming up, y'all. I have a show coming up this Sunday from 6 to 8. Doors open at 6. Showtime is at 6:40, where I am putting on my first spoken word showcase. And I'm truly excited about the vendors I have coming on. I will tell y'all more about the showcase at the end because I don't want to hold our guests any longer. So I was very deliberate about the people I invited to vend at my event. And of course, Tayler Simon was at the top of this list. Tayler, if y'all have been paying attention, has already been on the podcast, but for the sake of the fact that she is going to be a vendor, I wanted to bring her back on. And this episode is really called Women in Business, because all these women who are going to be featured at the spoken word showcase on Sunday, July 13th, Rock Bottom Studios from 6 to 8 are Black women vendors, Black women in business. So I wanted her to come on here and not only just share what she does, but just share her story, her why, which I'll admit she's done this before, but we're doing it again for the sake of the show. So, and then we're like-minded today, where I wore her shirt and she wore my shirt. So yeah, pretty dope, huh? So thank you for coming on, Tayler.
Thank you so much for having me again.
So my first question to you is, when did you decide I want to go into business for myself? And was it initially the bookstore, or was it some other ideas? Like, what made you decide to go into business for yourself?
So it's so funny. I was actually just telling someone yesterday that I never thought I would be a business owner or entrepreneur. I always thought like, oh, I'm better suited behind the scenes. Like, I just want to work, collect a check, do something that feels good, that I'm passionate about. And I thought I had that with work. I have my MSW, Master's in Social Works, and I have been working with survivors of sexual assault, domestic violence for 8 years. And I thought, this is it. Like, this is what I'm passionate about. I love helping survivors. And then my mental health kind of tanked from doing that work, and I got really burnt out. And so I tried to apply to other like community outreach and engagement positions, and nobody was trying to hire me. And I was like, but I really need to take this step for my mental health. So I had an existing blog. So that's kind of where my publishing writing started. I had my own blog about books and social justice. And I was like, well, maybe I'll just go into business for myself. I said 2 years ago that I wanted to eventually make this a bookstore. And I thought, well, I guess the time is now, even though I only have $500 in my savings account and no idea how to run a business. So it was really me walking out on faith, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I was asking so many questions to people I knew who were doing pop-up stores, people who I had made connections with in like the book industry, like when I was doing like book reviews and things. And I was just kind of building the airplane as I was trying to fly it. And so it's been working out for me so far, and we just celebrated our second birthday on Juneteenth this year. So it was one of the best decisions. And Liberation is Lit is a call to action, but also it's been like a very personal journey for me. And in starting this business, I experienced a lot of my own personal liberation.
So I got to go back to when you said it was like building an airplane, because some people, you have different people who have different entrepreneur journeys where they feel like they have to have the business plan, just have everything mapped out. And you admitted you stepped out on faith. So, what do you think ultimately, and you probably already said this, I want to make sure people get this, because sometimes it's not going to be, I guess, handed to you. It's just something you have to build. You said literally building it like an airplane. So what made you just say, let's just do this? Like, let me just go out there and see what happens.
I think the response that I got, because I had already a very well-established community. It
Mhm.
wasn't local yet, but I had like maybe 2,000 followers when I announced that, hey, I'm gonna make this a bookstore. And I will tell you now, I did not do any of this alone. Like I said, I was asking people, like I had this one woman that I would, when I was living in Athens, Georgia, who had like a soap and like body care line, and we would always see her at markets. I reached out to her on Instagram and was like, hey, can I talk to you about how you started your business?
Mm.
And that was kind of like the first seed. So she was telling me about what markets to sign up for, and like what things she, like, make sure you have a table and
Mhm.
tablecloth and all of these things. And that was kind of the first step. So I was looking to see which markets that I needed to apply to. And some of them were like, you need a business license. So I was like, okay, let me go get
Mhm.
this business license. So I got the business license. And I kind of knew from doing freelance writing work that I already needed a separate business account and things like that for like, and like how to keep up with like receipts and stuff for taxes.
Mhm.
So I knew that on like the 1099 side, not the LLC side.
Mhm.
And I decided, okay, I want to do the LLC. And I was seeing all online that you should not pay anybody to make your own LLC. You should only pay the fees that you need to register with the Secretary of State. So in
Mhm.
just like my conversations with people asking questions, I just got little nuggets here and there, and then one thing would lead to another thing. For example, I wrote for this book blog, Feminist Book Club, for a long time, and I asked the owner during our meeting, like, what do I need to know to get in the book business? She was like,
Mhm.
join American Bookseller Association. Through that, I got all of these access to all of these things specifically for bookstore owners and things like
Mhm.
that, and got access to conferences and met other fellow booksellers. So when I say I was like building the plane, I was flying it. It was like I was asking a lot of questions for people who I knew were already doing the work, and then just kind of picking out things from that. But also, like, as I needed like the business license, then I was like, okay, let me look into retail license. And so it was kind of like breadcrumbs leading me on a path to see, okay, this is what I do next. And
Mhm.
then I sat down with one of my friends, and we were kind of talking about who is in she's in development, how, like, what is the overall goals you want to do with Liberation
Mhm.
is Lit, and how do you want to talk to people about what you do? So that is when I had my business plan. So I had been operating for probably about 4 or 5 months before I had
Mhm.
like a solidified business plan. um,
Mhm.
because a business plan is really helpful to know your goals and kind of have that roadmap. And
Mhm.
but it's, you don't have to have like an official business plan unless you are applying for loans and grants and things like
Yeah.
that. And with, I wanted to kind of bootstrap everything, and so far I've been doing everything debt free. So um but people have their own paths and their needs and stuff like that. But I just did a lot of research, asked a lot of questions, and just followed the breadcrumbs as I went along.
So one thing I've noticed with your book selection in Liberation is Lit is you're very deliberate about the type of books. Can you talk about the type of books you purposely put in your bookstore?
Yes. So Liberation is Lit, the blog, the books I talked about, they were all books written by Black, Indigenous, other people of color, LGBTQ plus, disabled writers, and women writers. And not all of them had an overt social justice theme, but I really truly believe, and the core of Liberation is Lit and just my personal philosophy is that when you center the stories from those who are marginalized, we can find the answer to finding liberation for all of us. And so I was very deliberate on uplifting those books. And so that was kind of the books that I wanted to keep with the store. And I always take donations because we're a used bookstore, but I'm very deliberate about the curation of like what books that I actually keep and what books that I may let go to like Goodwill or some other donation center. And I always make sure I provide quality as well. So like unless they're like it's like a vintage James Baldwin Go Tell on the Mountain that the cover was like the corner was missing, and I was like, no, this is classic. This is it's okay for this one.
Yes.
But again, like making sure there's quality, and I have a range of things from classics to new releases that I'm just like, dang, this book just came out last month and I just got it as a donation. So I'm very deliberate on whose voices I'm centering, as well as the quality of my books. And then as I kind of was making connections in the community on furthering Liberation is Lit's activism work, I really got sucked into like book banning advocacy. So the new books that I will always have stock in the store are the books banned in South Carolina specifically.
So let's go back to is something that you do also. I wanted to spotlight that you do, how you are in Soda City at least twice a month. And you offer an opportunity for local authors. And it doesn't have to be local authors or indie authors.
Indie authors, I usually reserve for local authors because I don't know if other authors want to like travel to Columbia. But I did have an author from Charlotte come table with me at Soda City. So that was something that I kind of came up with in the beginning of my business when I was bootstrapping. I didn't have money for a lot of inventory. So I started out with a lot of donations for used books. But another thing I wanted to make sure I highlighted was working with independent and self-published authors. So I was researching how consignment works. And so I know a lot of bookstores don't like to do it because I will admit the paperwork is a lot to keep track of. But I really think it is important to highlight like even more marginalized voices. So I want to make sure I spotlight indie authors, self-published authors, and Ryan's been out there with me, and I've had a couple of other authors join me, and then I've also done things with nonprofits coming out with me to Soda City just to talk about what they do as it aligns to activism and literacy. And I've also done like different events, like there was a Teach Truth Day that was centered around book censorship, and we collaborated at Soda City for that as well.
So that, and I wanted to put that out there because I don't remember how or when, but I remember Pat X reached out to me and was like, did you reach out to Tayler? I think I just released A Blessing for the World in reverse. And he says, you reach out to Tayler about Soda City? I said, I did not know. So, and mind you, we have been following each other in each other's circle. But what I'm learning more and more, if we're not deliberate about going on people's pages, we miss things. So thankfully, God used Pat X. Shout out to Pat X. Who was like, you need to reach out to Tayler. And then from there, she sent me a form and I was able to sign up for a particular day. It's pretty, if you've never done, number one, Soda City can be expensive, I would think, for an author. So to have someone who was willing to let you come on their platform, on their tent, and on their table and sell for a day is definitely a blessing within itself. So I do greatly appreciate that. I wanted to shout that out. So again, she will be with us on Saturday, not Saturday, oh my gosh, on Sunday, July 13th from 6 to 8. Showtime starts at 6:40. Doors open at 6. And I was very deliberate about the time window from 6 to 6:40 because I'm allowing you to shop with our vendors. We have at least 7 vendors there, from food to black soap to books to art. So we have a variety of vendors you can shop and support. So I also recommend, and then when the show starts, they're going to be coming to the mic to introduce themselves briefly. But then I also left time at the end of the show that if you got there, because I know some of y'all are not coming in at the right time, so you will have time at the end to shop. So I'm not performing from 6 to 8, but there is going to be time before the show and after the show to definitely shop our vendors. So when did you start with the initiative and with book banning? Like, when do you remember exactly the year you started? And what I asking you why you started is really a redundant question because we know who you are. But at the same time, I want you to explain to the people, because like I was sharing, I think on Sunday during our discussion with Black Nerd Mafia, you really are the boots on the ground, the ears on the ground, that if we're not able to make it to these sessions, you're letting us know what's going on. And for those of you who are watching, we do have up her website where you can connect with her, and you will find on her social media, liberationislit.com, because I am live on Instagram and TikTok because StreamYard does not want to connect to them. But what made you get into book banning, and how can we get help with book banning?
Yeah, so I have been following the increases in just because of the content that I was seeing my algorithm on social media. I saw a lot about like the rise in book bans and how like it exploded in 2021 and how like so many books were banned in Florida and Texas, but I wasn't really hearing a lot about South Carolina. And kind of when I started my business, I was networking everywhere. I was going to all the events. Mm-hmm. So I happened to go to the Women's Rights Empowerment Network's REN's some kind of Women's History Day thing outside of the State House. And I was talking to the executive director at the time, Ann Warner, because I had built a relationship with them in my previous work. And she was like, "Oh, do you know Josh Malkin at the ACLU?" And I was like, "Oh, no." So she introduced us. He was in the midst of like building this Freedom to Read coalition. I'm sorry, this was in 2023. Yes, 2023, August. And he was in the midst of building this Freedom to Read coalition with connecting groups across the state who were doing work around book censorship. So in getting connected to that group, I learned about the State Board of Education's Regulation 43-170 that is really the catalyst for all of these books being taken off the shelf. I learned about what was happening in Beaufort County, where 2 parents were challenging 7 books. I was getting really connected to these things, and then that was the group that I felt comfortable with going to Board of Education meetings, because I'm like, do I really belong here? I don't have kids. Like, I don't have any connection to the school system right now. But going with that group and finding that people that I didn't have to be alone was really empowering. And that's why I post the updates and things when I go to the State House, when I go to the Board of Education meetings, because yes, they're really boring, but a lot of people may feel intimidated to go, like they may not belong. And I just want to show like, it's just boring people doing boring legislation work. And I have a poem in my newest poetry collection, Black Madonna, that talks about how legislation is so boring with all these boring words on the page, but like it has so much power to strip away our rights and our humanity.
Yes.
And people feel this disconnect because they're like, I don't care about what these, like, if you ever flipping through channels and see C-SPAN, like it looks like the most boring thing ever. And that is another way for our lawmakers to have us disconnected from the process. And yes, it's really boring, but then there's some things where you're just like, did they just really say that? Like, is this really happening? And that's how easily things can just happen right under our noses because we have so much disconnect. And so that's why I really want to use my platform to show that anybody can do it, even though I know they make it difficult because people have jobs and kids to pick up and all of these things, a barrier to get involved. But you can stream online during your lunch break. You can find time to send the letters to your representatives. I was just doing a podcast episode for my podcast, Liberation is Lit.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my guests was saying, just schedule time in your week, 30 minutes a week. That's half a lunch break to make the calls to your elected officials on the issues you care about, sending emails to them, just keeping up, reading the newsletter emails from different organizations that can keep you up on the issues. It just takes an hour to 30 minutes a week, and then another hour to do something in your community, volunteer at a garden, volunteer at the food shelter, whatever you can, just up to 2 hours a week. And you're still involved in your community and
Mm-hmm.
see all of the things that benefit you, but also how you can give back.
And I will never forget when I heard her name, if I'm not mistaken, is Kimberly Jones, either Kimberly Jones or Kimberly Johnson. But she was saying how sometimes we may have to form a group where not everybody can go to the meeting, but we send someone to the meeting to report back to the group, and then we go whatever action steps we have to do. But it's time out for us to stop thinking that we have no voice and we can't take action on certain things. Like, it's despite the crazy bill that was passed last week, one of the things I kept hearing from different politicians and reporters is there was a glimmer of hope because there were some things, because we spoke up about it, things did not go through in the bill. And what I thought was crazy about the bill last week, if you looked at the votes, Tayler, it was literally 4 or 5 votes that was the deciding factor of them passing this bill. And I just wonder if more of us would have known. Like, I even mentioned on a post I did last week on social media is how I really didn't know who my representative was. I met all this time, I didn't know. And then I looked it up based on and I went to the website, I Googled, well, who's my representative? They sent me to a website, which asks for my zip code, which asks for my address. And that's when I found out it was Representative Joe Wilson. Called his office to tell him to vote against the bill, to find out, like, right after I called him, they already voted on the bill. But it was like, if I was, again, you take that time to really, whether it's the beginning of the week or midweek, just find out what's going on. And some of you may not trust news outlets, but I definitely recommend you follow Tayler on Liberation is Lit. She is definitely, I believe, a voice of our people, that if I don't get a chance, as a matter of fact, it was her and somebody else, and the reason why I went to the State House for the first time and sat and listened to the different testimonies and the different, basically advocating, I think it was at the time DEI, not passed at the State House. So, and then there's some other people out there, whether it's Joy Reid, I was seeing a post by April Ryan. There are a lot of people who are either in news or they're no longer in news, but they're letting us know. I think it's called For the People. It was started by Angela Rye. That's a group to follow. The ACLU. There's a lot of organizations out there who are making sure we don't get blinded to the truth, because despite the fact that it is boring legislation, it is seem like it's a little bit redundant, but that's how they slip in things and do things. Like the bill that Tayler just mentioned earlier. What was boggled my mind, and we talked about this on my podcast that she was on before, is how no one read the bill. No one read the bill. And then one guy admitted on camera that they purposely didn't read the bill. That, again, that South Carolina now has a statute where if it goes through this committee, they can ban a book across the state. Not just a school, but the state. And the reason why this is in place now is because the lawmakers didn't realize in the bill there was some wording where, despite the fact that it wasn't read, it could still be passed. Am I saying this correctly?
Yes, it was something about the timelines for, I think they didn't read it in like the amount of time before the deadline. So it just passed anyway.
And that's not, and the guy even admitted on camera, that's not normal. Normally, if we don't read it, it doesn't get passed. But they purposely reworded the bill so it would get passed, despite them knowing, and not despite, they knew they weren't going to read the bill. They knew they weren't going to take it seriously, because who cares about book bans? Not realizing what book bans are doing. So again, Liberation is lit. Tayler Simon, if you're not already following her, you need to be following her, not just to find out where she is selling awesome books. You also are a part of, but you help lead writers groups, right?
Yes.
One coming up on the 17th, I think. Am I right?
Yes. So me and City of Columbia Poet Laureate Jennifer Bartell Boykin, we started a Black women and gender nonconforming writer circle. So again, it's for Black women and gender nonconforming folks. And we meet every second or third Tuesday. It's next week. And we get together for around an hour and a half on Zoom, and we write together for an hour, and then we have time where you can share if you want. You can ask questions. It's not a writing circle where we give like critique or feedback. It's just a place where you can write and be seen if you want to.
So I have definitely participated in these. I participated in one, and I just need to just add it to my calendar with an alarm to remind me to log on. But I definitely, if you are a writer, if you are an aspiring author, you're just a writer, period, I definitely recommend joining some type of group. I know not when I first moved to Columbia, but when I really started taking my writing more seriously around, I want to say 2015 or so, but it might have been earlier that I had what was called the Columbia Writers Alliance. I heard they're still in existence.
Yes, somebody was actually telling me about them at Soda City last week.
Yes, they and Geraldine Noble is over that group. So shout out to Geraldine Noble. Like, she's the reason why I became self-published, because I saw because so many people in that circle are self-published. So I know they're in the process. I want to say she just launched a magazine. So it's a lot that they do, but there's a lot. But speaking to you last week, and I don't know if it was last week or during your book talk, which if you do not have Black Madonna, I need you to get Black Madonna. I need you to go to liberationislit.com and add Black Madonna to your cart. It will change your life. And what I like about, I thought about this, but didn't think about this one at her book talk. One of the ladies in the audience says that Tayler beautifully and eloquently can express herself in a very short prose. Like, she's not like me, who I write a book for a poem sometimes, but it literally can be 4 lines, but every line, as the kids say, hits so hard. It brings so much power. But at the same time, she also has a section in that book where she took her testimonies when she would go in front of legislation, when she would go in front of the school board, and she did what was called blackout poetry, which is, I was like, this is what? Like, it was like, that was the first book in a long time. Like, normally when I buy people's books, I'm not going to sit here and lie. I don't read them initially. I put them to the side because I'm already reading something and I'll get to it. But I remember when I got the book, I immediately opened it up and I didn't put it down until probably about 49 pages later. Like, I was like, yeah, it's Black. That is, out of her books, that is definitely my book. The cover alone is magnetic. So I should have had an image of it and put it.
I know. I was like, I have 3 out of 4 of my books right here, and not Black Madonna.
So it is, when I say it is so good. So she had a book signing at All Good Books, which is a local bookstore here in Columbia, South Carolina. But I definitely, who was it? Darius put earlier. Oh, Brittany, she's on here. She said hello. Brittany is our host for the show on Sunday, which I'm really excited about her. She was here yesterday. We did a podcast with her and Karen, aka Winter Storm, who will be performing. You had Darius Dior, who said earlier, Liberation is lit. He's actually going to be the videographer for the evening. He's a really good brother. He's a lot of people who are just meeting him don't know he raps too. Like, he's a dope.
Like, I didn't know.
And he used to perform with me and him. Used to perform in certain circles together, and then he reemerged again when I saw him with Quasi had a show, and he performed with Black Nerd Mafia at Curry. That was probably years ago. My years are starting to run in with each other, so I don't remember when I met people or re-met people. And yeah, so again, this Sunday from 6 to 8, Rock Bottom Studios. If you Google them, they are off Garners Ferry Road. For those of you who are familiar with Garners Ferry, is actually the Word of God Church Shopping Center. So he is tucked in the back corner. If you don't know anything about Corey Davis, you need to look him up. Number one, the studio alone is an art gallery by itself. But if I'm not mistaken, he may be the only Black animation studio in South Carolina. I hope I'm not quoting that wrong, but I think he is. I have to look it up. I feel that sounds right, but he works with a host of different artists, a host of different animators, and they have comics and they do a host of work, but they have a space that they're hosting. They lease out to different vendors. So we will have her there in the lobby. As soon as you walk in, it will be her and 7 other young ladies. 5 of them will be coming on between today and tomorrow to talk about their business. So this is part 1. I'm truly excited. I think the reality is, if you didn't get anything from this podcast, number 1, follow Tayler for all things Black Girl Magic and all things liberation, because she really wants every voice to be heard. And she is adamant about it. I've said this before. She is like my little big sister, because she's younger than me, but I look up to her because her dedication towards the work is unfathomable, but at the same time, it is powerful and is inspirational. And I just greatly appreciate y'all joining me on TikTok and on Facebook.
Do we have 2 seconds to talk about another event that we're collaborating on? Because
I totally forgot.
Yes.
We need to yell, Joshua. I just realized my son is probably sleeping like, Mama, really? I'm sorry, Joshua. Yeah. So you introduced it.
Yes. So I'm excited. We are coming together on, what day is that? Let me pull up a calendar real quick.
The 9th.
The 29th, yes.
Okay.
July 29th at All Good Books. Ryan and I will be in conversation about her book, her middle grades novel, Reverse.
I can put that on the screen. I got that up.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes, 6 p.m., All Good Books, July 29th, in conversation with Ryan Jenkins.
Yes, so this is something I've been wanting to do. Matter of fact, I want to say I came to you super early before I even was really done with the book. I was like, we need to do a book talk, and I'm just trying to get myself out there. And I'm going to be doing a whole lot more of these. It's just a matter of partnering with people and venues and places that are not going to charge you. So I actually met with Winifred Tata last night. We talked. So we're trying to collaborate and do some things. So I'm just
one of my authors at Liberation is Lit too.
Yeah. So if you are not Winifred Tata, if you're not following her, a lot of people don't know. Well, when you bring her name up here in Columbia, people who went to Westwood High School, they know exactly who she is. And I want to say she was self-published with 4 books by the time she was 25.
Yeah, now she has a whole publishing company.
Yeah, a whole publishing company. She just launched a magazine. Not just launched it, but she did a launch, not like launch it as this is the first edition. It was a new edition. Because Chris Wynn, who is from the Low Country also, he was featured in it along with Georgia Nubia. So y'all, we're trying to do all things. We're taking over the world. Despite the fact that the world seems to be burning down, we are trying to save what is left and do what we can. So that's why it only made sense for my first show for Tayler to be there. Hopefully, prayerfully, I can put on more shows and then feature more people like Tayler to even perform her work and share her work with you. And I'm just really excited about Sunday. And I'm just really excited. Not only am I doing something that I've been scared of doing for the last ever, I'm also grateful that I'm able to put on Black female entrepreneurs for them to share their gift, for you to patronize them and support them, for you to get a card, for you to book them for future events. It's all about us. All of us can win. All of us can win. So I greatly appreciate y'all joining me. So I am going to log off. I'm probably going to log back on TikTok later, but right now I'm going to log off. Thank y'all for joining me. And we are going to end the stream. I don't know what I'm doing on TikTok. So, bye, y'all. So I'm gonna click because I forgot here. Just gotta click the end button.